Welcome to the Pittsburgh SMPTE section. Tonight is what has been called in other sections a town hall meeting. What that really means is it's a chance for you to offer your comments and suggestions about our programs and presentations, and best of all, to have it in an interactive dialogue as opposed to filling out a survey or something like that. Bill Bennett will be the moderator. I'd like to thank the section managers. We count on them to keep this section going. Bill Bennett is the webmaster. Ed Fraticelli is our corresponding manager. Greg Abel is the secretary treasurer. And George Hoover, John Luff, Dan Turk, and Mike Giannatis round out the section managers. After the general discussion, I'll turn it over to George Hoover, who will talk about nominations for the upcoming year for chairman, treasurer, and 3 section manager seats. The next meeting should be very interesting. Buzz Moyer has had a 30-year career in Hollywood as a camera operator, and I think it will be very interesting. I hope that you can make it. I think everyone in production will find this particular presentation very interesting. And he will talk about how he got started as a camera operator and how you may start your career as well. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Bill Bennett, who will take us through the discussion tonight. Bill, it's all yours.
Hey, thank you, John. Thanks very much. And we wish our guests hello and thank you for joining, like John said, our kind of unique open forum thing with all the mics and cameras on if you want to kind of join the free-for-all. As John has said, we're back with our meetings, but we still want to fine-tune what we're doing in this community. The SMPTE National Headquarters has great ideas and strategies for different communities, and we can see what different sections from New York and Hollywood and so on are doing. But every town's different. Pittsburgh's different. We've got robotics, of course, beyond the film. We've got radio and television like everybody else, but we've got a lot of universities and academic areas that are part of the film and video and audio and video in mixed communities. So we want to kind of get an idea from you. We've sent out polls in the past, like Survey Monkeys and such, but this forum is a great way for people to just throw out there what they want and play off each other's ideas and creative juices. So we hope a few more people will jump in and join us at this point. And so like John said, by the way, if you caught at the beginning, this is being recorded. So anything you say can and will be used permanently. So, keep it clean. And if you're going to throw a chair, throw it away from the camera so we can see it when it bounces away. So, and really, there's not a whole lot of moderating to do, frankly, because this is an open forum, free-for-all, casual. We do have a bunch of ideas, like 15 or 18 ideas that we've gleaned from SMPTE National Headquarters. Some will seem more appropriate than others. Some might make you think, oh, that's interesting. And some might make you think, oh, what's that? But again, we're all here as a community, so we can riff off each other's ideas. And, this meeting is, technically, it can go till 8:30 even if we wanted with the Zoom setup we've got. So, there's no limit. And like John said, there's some more conversations about board positions also to have afterwards. So yeah, really, without further ado, here's the first 3. And I could read these off, or we all can kind of take turns. Oh, and by the way, please use the chat mechanism too. If any of you want to make a suggestion and you'd rather not do it by voice but just by text, feel free to use the chat session and make sure it's set to go to the everyone group so we can all see it. So, but yeah, we're still dealing with COVID, and so we keep realizing that we're missing a lot of fun in this community by not seeing each other in person and going to great places like Mitsubishi or PPG Paints Arena or NEP's facilities. There's so many other great venues and WPXI, great hosts all. If we could still put something together, that would be in a distanced setting, maybe masked setting. Would you take advantage of that? Would you go?
Yes, I would go.
I know I would. absolutely, I would.
I miss the in-person meetings, and in the days of COVID now that are upon us. We wander around, in general, and we bump into countless number of people that we have no idea what their COVID status is. And we can either hide from it all, or we can, and it's a very touchy subject for a lot of folks, but we can either hide from it and hibernate and stay in our own little world, or we can get out and mingle and hope for the best. So I would prefer to see in-person meetings whenever we can. My personal preference.
And that actually brings up a good point, because I remember we had an email dialogue across the managers a few weeks back about, do we ask for vaccination records? Do we, restrict it to that? But then how do you, is that a logistics thing that, we don't want?
The only thing I think would be problematic might be the venue. Because the venue itself, those folks that run that might be a little picky about who comes through the door.
Very good point.
Yeah, think about that.
Tom, if I can call you out at WESA and WYEP, as a percentage of employees in the building versus not, what's it like these days?
I'd say we're probably right now, the thought is they don't want you in the building unless you're essential, but I'd still say there's probably about 30% of the people at Pittsburgh Community Broadcasting. It varies on and off, and they've had a pretty strict regulations. You have to have a vaccine, and they just updated recently that everyone must wear a KN95, so specific masks, and no outside personnel is allowed in the building at this point in time.
Okay, so there's a good example. And Tim, of course, at RMU, are you having in-session classes now, or hybrid, or?
Yeah, I was actually about to type that in. Yeah, so we were in person. We're in person. I think there's some variation. We have some flexibility. Small groups, they're not asking us to verify vaccination status of guests, though all of our students and staff are required to be vaccinated. But if, for instance, I'm pretty sure if we wanted to do a meeting at UPMC Event Center and check out their new broadcast center, we'd probably have to give Scott and his team proof of vaccination for people who are coming. I'm not 100% sure about that, but it's funny. I think it's one of those things where it'd probably be easier for me to come in person if we were hosting, because I already got to be there. Because we're pretty much all in person.
I think everybody would like to have, live in-person meetings. I know I would. The problem is right now, you probably know that COVID is spiking again worldwide. And so it's kind of a bad time currently to try, a live meeting, in-person meeting, I should say. We had Carnegie Science Center was going to do a presentation of their 8K Buell stuff, which of course would be really cool, but obviously you have to be there to see it. So, that was tabled for a while. But, I think we all want to get back together in person. And I think we all have some level of concern. I don't know. I guess my feeling would be I would go with the flow. If the majority of people wanted to meet in person, I'd go along with it, and on the assumption that you're all vaccinated and have masks and that kind of thing. I would wear a mask in order to meet in person. Okay, that's it for me.
Yeah, I would hope maybe by, it might be too soon right now, but I hope that, by spring we might be able to start, getting together again, even with some reasonable precautions. But like we were just saying, it may depend on the venues, restrictions. So, but we'll have to tackle that when we get to it. But I would hope by this spring we can all get together again. I hope.
It seems, yeah, that's the current snapshot of the trend, but that changes all the time. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Right.
Thank you everyone for that. And of course, I should say we could always go back to these, even if we start going down the list. If someone wants to bring back up an idea from a previous topic, definitely do.
I think though, Bill,
Yeah,
when we
Ed.
do, when we are able to go live again, or in person again, I mean, we probably will still have to offer this as as an alternative for people that aren't comfortable, meeting or too far away. I mean, I think this is a great way to get together, even if we aren't together in person, because it'll be able to bring other people in. So I think maybe this is this might be a permanent part of our repertoire. So we'll see.
And, I remember somebody brought in a streaming encoder, like maybe 4 years ago. We tried to do a live webcast of one of our meetings. The platform and technology has gotten so much more streamlined now that it will be easier, I would think.
Much easier.
Yeah.
It was a little cumbersome then. It worked, but it was cumbersome. So
yeah. A lot of these encoders now, they have Wi-Fi antennas on them and stuff, and nice interfaces. Link it right to YouTube. Good to go.
Yeah.
So a segue to that is YouTube. Now we have our YouTube channel. We have all the current meetings since last spring up there, and this will be there. The interest in seeing a live recorded meeting versus, a live meeting versus a recorded meeting. I know my preference is to see it live, just so you can interact and ask questions, but not everybody can make that. Does anyone have a preference of watching a recorded meeting instead of a live, or do we all trend towards live, or,
I think it depends on the topic, doesn't it?
Well, it also depends on your work situation. At 6:30, are you on an airplane? Are you working somewhere? Is it the time you normally have dinner with your family? It's easier to get away when you're not in the house than, okay, I'm going to go hide downstairs at dinner time and attend a SMPTE meeting.
Tim even mentioned some students at RMU are in production right now. So, you can't be two places at once.
I think you want to do anything that doesn't limit people's ability to participate. So obviously streaming and recorded broadens the audience, which is not unique to us. Every major television distributor has figured out you can watch it now on ABC, you can stream it later on Hulu and get it on demand. So
yeah, and I can't imagine us not recording a session. I mean, it's just built in. So
yeah, again, it's much easier now than it was. So it's you usually have those videos up the next day. So there's not a lot we have to go through to make that work. So
or the day after,
or the day. Well, it depends how busy you are. But
you've done them too, so yeah.
I think maybe where a recorded session might come in to play is if we want to have the presentation at a certain time, like an evening, but the person that is giving the presentation is not available and they want to record it ahead of time. That would be, if it's a compelling topic, that would be just as interesting as having a live meeting. So
yeah, that could be.
It's interesting you mentioned that, Ed, because we had that discussion about Buzz Moyer is starting shooting that Tom Hanks movie in Pittsburgh, and he couldn't be available in the evening, and so we discussed how about a noon, which I don't think we've ever done a noon meeting, have we?
Nope,
but we're going to do a noon meeting in February. And so we'll see how that goes.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, John, anymore. I mean, first of all, recording them, I think is excellent, because I know I've gone back and looked at some of the things that have been presented just because they were interesting topics, but more and more that industry or the world has to deal with working or these sorts of activities at 24 hours a day, it seems like. So, making it a noon meeting, I don't see anything wrong with that. As long as we know well enough in advance and it's not going to get changed, you just block it into your calendar.
Yeah, I've actually done presentations for Diversified and Sexton Group and others. Well, NV5, and they call them lunch and learns because they get their, get their group together, lunchtime, eat, and I'm babbling. So
well, and the upside too is
I'm sorry, it's true.
If the meeting is virtual, then at noon, you're only out of work, out of the office for the duration of the meeting. It's not like you're commuting somewhere and you're probably brown bagging it from your desk.
Mhm.
So it's actually more time efficient.
And really with an hour, we're maybe a little more focused. We're like, okay, got to keep going. Got to be
Yeah,
done.
'cause
Only
if you-
downside I can imagine is no Q&A, but that's the way it goes.
Well, it doesn't have to be exactly an hour. If you go to, when we were having evening meetings and you were having to be somewhere at 6:30, typically we weren't leaving until 9 o'clock plus commute. You're essentially doing close to 3.5 or 4 hour commitment.
Half a day.
Virtual meeting at noon is going to be maybe 90 minutes tops.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see how it works.
Yep. And it's a good test topic. So
Now we have, speaking of topics, 17 or 18 of these. So I'm going to keep going unless somebody wants to keep on.
Hey, Bill, at
Yeah.
15 minutes a slide, this
Yeah.
is going to be
Yeah.
a long meeting.
What's breakfast going to be like? Who's catering? And John, or this is an interesting one. A theme for a year. I mean, would since we don't have meetings in the summer, could there still be a reason to have a theme? 6 or 8 meetings that's all around one theme in a year. I don't know that we can do that personally. That's there's too many other things to talk about. But
I don't think so. It's tough enough to get presentations for the meetings
Yeah.
without staying within a theme.
yeah.
well,
yeah.
it also then limits your potential audience to only those people who are interested in that theme.
7
if you
months of
don't-
audio.
Yeah, well, as I say, if you're not interested in sound for major motion pictures or Dolby Atmos, you're not going to tune in for 7 meetings on a topic that is irrelevant to you, particularly if it's virtual and you don't have any of the social aspects.
Good. Okay. Joint meetings with other organizations are possible, and that's a really neat idea since everyone is, these Zoom meetings are becoming so much more pervasive. What do you all think about that? Joint Zoom meeting live with, another SMPTE section that's maybe in our time zone, shared, and maybe their presenter talks to our group or our presenter talks to their group. I mean, like this meeting kind of session, only we blend the two groups together.
My interpretation of the question really was other organizations in our market,
IEEE.
and that really doesn't exist any longer for all practical purposes.
Well, there's no SBE, that's for sure.
But
Yeah, the
I think
SBE would have been
I think
logical.
your suggestion of other SMPTE chapters is a really good one, and I think probably every chapter is working through the same set of options, and if we can come up with really great topics and put the Ohio section and the Pittsburgh section together, I think that would be a great idea.
I have been having talks with one of the managers of the SMPTE Detroit group. They'd like me to present on a topic.
And Philadelphia.
Same time zone, same as
Yeah.
Philly. So there's some connections there, yeah. Of course, the trick is getting, like you said, John, a topic that's of interest to everyone that they didn't just cover or have coming up.
I frequently attend the New York section meetings. You used to be in person, but that option's sort of out right now.
That's great. Now you can do it more often.
Yeah.
Perhaps our Eastern Regional Governor could offer us some guidance.
That is Carl Kuhn still, isn't it?
I don't know.
Huh.
I don't think so. I think Carl's off the board at the moment. I'll look while we're talking.
So that's cool. That's a strong topic. Brought some good back and forth. Anybody else want some comments on that, or do we go to number 5?
5.
All right. So what is, like it says, what is the best time of day and day of the week?
It used
What do
to
y'all
be
think?
when the meetings were in person, it was important to give people advance warning so they could block out the first Wednesday of the month. And if something came up when they had a choice of dates, they go, no, I really can't do it the first Wednesday. I got a SMPTE meeting. Well, now that the meetings are going to be virtual and recorded and able to participate in anywhere, I'm not sure having that as a set day is as important as giving people at least some degree of notice.
Yeah, we have tried to keep the meetings on Wednesdays, but, and initially the last Wednesday of the month, but we've let that slip a little bit. And I agree, George. I'm not sure that I think it's important that we have monthly meetings because we were in a furlough for a while and we lost a lot of members. And I would like to try to get people to think of us when we have monthly meetings.
Yeah, and I like personally a recurring same day, just because it's still that routine helps keep it like, oh, it's Wednesday. You know, I mean, obviously Mondays and Fridays are bad. It'll be
It
fun to
doesn't
see.
have to be Wednesday. It could be Tuesday or Thursday just as easily, and it could be
Right.
at noon or at 6:30 or 7. I had some people say 7 o'clock would be better.
Ooh, yeah.
I guess my question would be is, should we move it around and see what works, or just establish a time and a day of the week?
You know, our limited membership is so small, we may not get enough data from moving it.
And there's too many variables because topic comes into play as well.
Yeah, also a good point. Yeah. Did anybody
Are
else?
you-
Yeah, I
Are
think
you-
we can just remain flexible. So I think,
Yeah.
I think we can use more flexibility now. So we don't have to be strictly the same day of the week every month. So
I'm
Yeah,
anxious to see what happens with a noon meeting or a lunch meeting, because you almost have a captive audience. I mean, they're sitting at their desks in a large part. They're not at home being distracted by, in my case, my dog or whatever. But you've got their attention and they know it's not going to take more than an hour. They can come and go as they need to. And it's, there's no drive time either direction. There's no prep in advance. I'm anxious to see how that goes, because I think it might work better than what we expected.
And I think we may find out that I used to call it a season. Our season is a hybrid season of some in-person meetings at a facility of interest, and some meetings are purely virtual.
Yes.
So you
Yes,
get
I
a
agree.
combination of the social aspects of being together with the flexibility of it's an hour and 15-minute commitment.
Yeah. Well, in fact, if we get a great speaker that can't be in town for whatever reason, or there you go, has to be virtual. If it's a venue visit, of course, it has to be physical. Yeah.
Bill,
Flexibility.
let me modify that. If we got a great speaker who can only do it online, that doesn't mean we can't have a video projector set up in a place where we can all gather and have the
True.
social hour or do a tour or that kind of stuff, just the same as we always have.
It's true.
Yep. Definitely.
Nothing brings out attendance like free dinner.
By the way, our governors for the Eastern region for this year are Carl Kuhn. His term runs through 22. And David Long, his term ends at the end of 21.
So we'll essentially
Cool.
have 2 new people coming up.
Well, Carl will be through all of 22.
Yeah.
But there'll be 1 new person coming in January.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, yes. David Long should theoretically be off, shouldn't he?
Yeah.
So I'm going to move us along here. Tim, keeping you awake here, I'm going to ask you, if I may, because this is right to the heart of students. And so much of our founding was focused on students and the membership benefits that SMPTE provides students. And with COVID, it just fell apart. And what can we do? And I know you and I have emailed, and your colleagues a few months ago. I'd like to get us more connected with other universities in town as well. What can we do?
Yeah, it's interesting because we've had the similar conversations in the film office group, which is the Pittsburgh Film and Media Educators, which Don Keyser put together, because they're having the same thing with the bottom dropped out of students that were coming. The conversation we've been having, I think this is maybe limited to RMU because we just had the big reorganization of a bunch of our majors is that, and I think this is something I mentioned when we were talking in our email, is that we've suddenly had this conversation about groups of students that really we want to expose to the SMPTE section who we haven't been talking to before. Because we like all the emails tonight, we sent it all to, the coordinators of student media about the production thing. And I think we have a good chance of getting a few of those students to come to that next month. But the thing I'm excited about, and I think I want to talk, is really educating the faculty, my colleagues over in cybersecurity and our new computer science program, because when we talk to them about some of the events that some of the events that were hosted at NEP a couple of years ago, they go, "Oh, wait a second, that's our area." Wait, that's television that's broadcast engineering, and I'm like, yeah. So the one that really resonated with them was, I think it was time code at NEP, and we were talking about cybersecurity for the time code at the Super Bowl venue. I think that was, and they were like, "Wait a second, that's relevant to our cybersecurity students." I'm like, "Yes, it is."
Who knew?
And they're talking about making it easier for our cybersecurity and cyber forensic students to take media classes. And once that happens, I think that's something that we need to change within the schools, I think, because they're trying to make, computer science programs recognize that those students still like video games, those students still like sports, those students still watch TV, or Netflix anyway. Yeah, but I think we're really, really behind on educating some of our colleagues who don't know that the whole IP thing happened. And that we're with the program with the computer science people now. So I don't know that I think initially I was like, oh yeah, we just need to tell them that these events are happening. And I think those of us who are on the media side of the house and the production side of the house really need to be working to educate our colleagues over in the next buildings over, whether it's at here at RMU or down at Pitt. That seems to be a pretty consistent conversation, at least certainly on the. It's definitely a conversation that I'm hearing the folks in the UPMC Center and the folks at Peterson saying that the media production people are on board. Some of the computer science and technologist students haven't got the outreach yet. I don't know. Is that consistent with what other people are hearing or seeing?
It's all new to me. I'm surprised to hear that, and actually pleased to hear it, that there are other areas in the school. We always think of TV students and media students as being the primary target, but maybe we need to broaden our reach a little bit.
That might just be RMU, and it partly is because our new dean is a cybersecurity professor, and he when he toured our studio, he goes, "Hey, wait, this is an incubator for cyber students," and I was like, "It sure is," because and I think part of that is also that they're like so many other college campuses, we're getting hit by all the people telling us that our broadcast or webcasting setup isn't secure, which it isn't. But the same as it's not, ours isn't particularly bad. I should remember this is being recorded. But the thing is, we're viewing that as an opportunity, and we're engaging those students, going, "Hey, come, check this out," and hopefully those students will start coming to the section, because I think they'll discover this is something they want to do.
Earlier when we started, we even had the idea of robotics around when SMPTE in a section started. It was part of our charter, and so this is healthy, talking about this cross.
I think
pollination
from just a pure logistical issue, it's going to be a lot easier to wrangle a dozen or 24 faculty members than several hundred students. So you need the faculty to sort of be our representative on campus to remind students to go to this SMPTE meeting. And if they don't have an awareness to the point being discussed, then how will the students have it?
Are we communicating in the right way to reach students?
Great question.
That, to me, that's a really open question.
Well, if we're
And
requiring
the
people,
thought occurred to me while we were talking that maybe what we need to do is a 30-second video that says, come to the meeting next week. Here's a couple of words from the speaker, and there's going to be free pizza. And send it literally as a video that could hit social media for the students in a way that text is probably not going to get through.
well, my experience in my other life is you have to push the content to the end user. If you're waiting for them to go visit the SMPTE website, you're going to be waiting around a long time.
Exactly.
Are there like there must be departmental newsletters of sorts, not necessarily newsletter, but, updates of events going on, things for the students to take part in, Tim? I mean.
Yeah, the interesting thing is not that students are reading.
Well, there we go.
I think it seems to be there's two things that are working. One is to work directly with faculty and get them to incentivize students participating in stuff, either with grades or with some kind of practicum or some kind, like there's whole conversations happening to sort of incentivize students to participate in sort of pre-professional stuff. The other side of things has been to engage it with the student-led stuff, and that's been like the getting it on their social media, getting them to share it. And some folks seem to have had some success with that. The Film Office Pittsburgh things seem to be working with that because that's getting onto the student social media and they're sharing it on their Instagram groups and their Twitter groups and things like that. But in terms of departmental newsletters, yeah, I think that's across the board. I don't know, nationwide, I'm talking to faculty and they're just saying that no one's reading those. Because it's we're getting situations where students are not checking their institutional email once a week, which I think is actually in most universities, certainly all the ones around here, like students checking their university email once a week is, I think, a requirement of being a student, and students aren't generally even doing that.
Wow. Well, we do have a Twitter account, and I've monitored it or set it up long ago. If it's still active, we tweets. I guess that's the attention span, right? It's shorter and shorter.
Well, the problem, you have to
so
have
inundated.
followers.
Yeah, well,
And
that's
so
true.
we need somebody within the educational institutions, some student that has a lot of followers who
Yeah.
would pick up our tweet and resend it.
You're right. We need an
Because
influencer.
I don't know how many
Influencers.
followers we
I
have
think-
on our Twitter account.
I think the influencer in the past, if we think about when Bill Molson was part of this chapter, Bill was responsible for bringing 6 to 12 students every meeting.
Yeah.
And he would bring them on a regular basis. And he would be the guy that would evangelize the virtues of being a SMPTE membership, our member, and what all the membership benefits would be. And I think it's going to be difficult for, I'm looking at a list of, a bunch of old guys, except for maybe Tom and Tim, that are going to try to communicate with a bunch of students that it's 2 generations ago. I think if we can get the faculty to evangelize in the classrooms or with their students, they see them every day. I think it's unlikely that we're going to influence students to join us more than what a faculty member, a respected faculty member, can do. And Bill Molson was evidence of that. So I think we need to target some of the faculty folks, and I don't even know any of them.
I think that's
Well,
absolutely right. For me, the most influential thing I could do would be to borrow a van and fill it up
Yeah.
with students and bring them, which is obviously in
He
COVID I
did.
can't do, but that's what he used to do, as I understand it. Is
Yep.
like literally drive them there.
I think students are important. But we can't lose sight of the fact when you look at our membership list, we don't have anybody below 50 pretty much. So there's a whole generation after students and before retirement who have nothing to do with SMPTE. You can count the Dan Turks and a couple people on your fingers. We used to have a lot more. So if we get a bunch of 19, 20, 21-year-olds to show up at a meeting that's got a bunch of 50-year-old and retired people at, they're
So-
going to have
so-
difficulty seeing the relevance of, well, where's the
So what do you
guy?
think has changed? What has changed? What has made this like that?
Well, their broadcast engineers don't exist in most places anymore. There's one or two at a television station. As we all know, the technology pretty much runs itself. You don't have to work under the hood anymore. You may have to get on a chat with a help desk somewhere, but it's not like a TV station might have had 20 engineers.
So
The bigger concern I have is that one of the world's largest companies that has professional broadcast and media engineers that approach 3,500, 4,000 people has fewer SMPTE members than you can count on two hands worldwide. There's a huge disconnect here in SMPTE's overall mission.
Worldwide, that's interesting.
so that swings it back around to
What is the relevance?
what are we going to do to go after students to get involved in this if we're having problems like this?
Yeah, I mean, that's my
Describe.
point. It has to, we can't dismiss the middle sector because otherwise who's going to be there when this group retires?
Tim, in your program, if there's and it's very difficult to be bipolar between just pure engineering and pure creatives, but there's a lot of blend. But where would you say that pendulum swings mostly? I'm going to bet towards creatives.
Well, right now, I mean, I think with what's going on with the number of field shoots in town, the students who want to go and be on set in production are getting to do it. So I think the pendulum has gone that way a little bit, but there are students who have gone into, have sort of been talked into doing technology majors who perhaps would have liked to do production, and they're trying to figure out their way back. And I think that's a group of students who I think could, it may be a compromise for what they're initially thinking they want to do. But I think, we're still out of the graduating groups, like 1 in 10, 1 in 20 are like absolutely gung-ho that they don't want anything to do with actual production, that they get a taste of the engineering side and they want to do it. And Dan's had a few of those folks go to NEP mostly. But
So, 1 out of 20, that's a small ratio.
it's a small group of a small program, right? But what I think we're seeing is that like the big group is like students who had gone into things like our sports communication program or our sports management program thinking they were going to be sports broadcasters, and they're finding that maybe that the venues and things that are more not engineering side, but not fully production side either, like the students our students who've ended up at AT&T have been a little bit hybrid. And I think that's where I'm kind of finding things a little bit interesting, is that, the production side is pretty healthy. The students who want to be, on set entertainment production, but our former sports broadcasting program, is hurting the same way that all journalism programs are hurting. And those students are moving towards media technology, I think, is a pretty good way of describing it.
Operational
That's great.
roles.
Operational is a good, yeah. I don't know if they're definitely not, they're not broadcast engineers, but they're
Replay people, graphics people, TDs.
Yeah, TD, we're always producing, we're all, every semester, one of our student goes off to master control somewhere or TDing somewhere. Those are still, we're still always producing one of those every time a student graduates. But the students who used to come, who used to be people who, like when I got here, there was always one of our recent graduates there at a SMPTE meeting with me. And those folks aren't there anymore. They were always the second youngest person there. I don't know where those guys are now. Other than Dylan, who we hired and is running the UPMC Event Center.
So Tim, how are they getting educated on things that are changing in the industries that you teach? Let me give you an example. The XR AI type stuff that's going on is fascinating stuff. There's got to be interest in that because it's new, it's touchy-feely, it's, a lot of motion pictures and programs are being made that way now. Who's getting educated on that?
I mean, the big thing that we need to do is we need to de-silo ourselves. So we have some really good stuff happening in our engineering school where students are learning about that, but those students don't, generally speaking, know the students who are working on VR stuff in the content side over in my school. We have two groups of students who are learning about the same thing, but never worked with each other for 4 years. That's a problem. That's not just us. That, I should say, that's a lot of schools. But we're not with the students. If the students aren't talking to each other, learning about how to be a technologist on the AI side, alongside the content students, then we're not really serving them to get them to come to participate in stuff like this.
Wow, this is very much a topic that we're gonna keep talking about, clearly, because
Bill, it might even be interesting to bring the SMPTE education representative in to a meeting like this among ourselves. I mean, there's got to be new avenues that need to be researched that haven't been done yet.
There, one group, I don't know if I don't want to put them on the spot here, but one of our out at RMU, one of our I think vice provost, associate provost for innovation, Maria Kelevich, is also our dean of our engineering school, put together this thing called our Center for Outreach and Innovation, and they'd be really interested in these kinds of conversations. So that'd probably be the unit within RMU I would probably talk to about how can we be better to bring people to these kinds of spaces where, yeah, like you guys are saying, there's a 20-year age gap where there's a generation missing.
Well, there's probably an app for it.
Oh, I agree about the age gap, but I think that the knowledge gap is far less than the age gap. Oh yeah, sure, we can go on about the good old days and how it used to be with quad VTRs, but the reality is we both want to learn about the same kinds of things as it relates to the business, new technology, things like that.
Well, and I didn't mean to indicate that there's an age gap of people with technical knowledge. There's an age gap of people participating in SMPTE.
Yeah.
And that's not unique to SMPTE. That's a common problem amongst many organizations, whether you're the Rotary Club or SMPTE.
SPE. I mean, I've done a lot of SPE presentations, as has John and Carol, I'm sure, and there's a lot of gray hair in those rooms.
Oh yeah.
But there's still people without gray hair that are out doing the same jobs and getting stations on the air and movies produced and all that other stuff who understand this technology. I mean, go watch the end credits of a movie.
Oh, yeah.
Look at the tech people that are involved in that. Mm-hmm. So
one theory.
It's the relevance of SMPTE to this age group, not the knowledge of the technology.
Well, one theory I've been noodling, because age and access to, there are different silos. Speaking of for instance, if so much more information is available online now for free. And so most of those names and those credits you mentioned, George, how many of them learned their craft to a great degree virtually? Not obviously you get really good, you got to be on site, physically hands-on and doing, but you can get a pretty strong boost by researching online. You don't have to start paying for classes or, at the beginning stages of certain learning pathways, so SMPTE is needed.
I'm going to disagree. I think that the technology, the very surface of the technology is available as a Google search, but to really learn anything about the craft and being able to do the job, you have to be immersed in it. And that's no different than it was 50 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt. You absolutely, that final
This is not a
stretch
Google
hands-on,
search, is what I'm saying.
There's still a lot of training materials that SMPTE has that are accessible online, close enough, similar, for free. So, one of those big reasons why people join SMPTE is for all these educational programs. Are they as necessary?
Are the educational programs relevant to the careers of the people making content today?
Great. Also, yeah.
Does anybody in a movie set need to know anything about SMPTE 2110?
Nope.
They need to know ACE's color system. They're going to learn that from somebody else. They're going to learn something else from another organization. A lot of what SMPTE used to do has now been fragmented out to different groups.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want to, we're not actually leaving the student section, but this, 7 and 8 are interesting bidirectionally. A class dedicated to students, and this is something we've talked about, career advancement, right? Maybe something like that. But also, so there's one thought, but also students presenting, maybe something they're doing, the latest, coolest thing that they're working on, some AI, XR kind of project, for instance. Why don't we turn the table? And
one of our best attended meetings was in our second year at Point Park, where Robert Morris and Pitt Tonight and 2 other universities all came in, and the students presented what they were doing.
I remember
Talked
that.
about how they were doing games.
That was a good one.
It was great.
I'm
I'm surprised you mentioned that, George, because that's exactly what I was going to say. I thought I was the only one that thought that was a great meeting. But
it was fun. Nice venue too.
And it kicked up our student participation. It was late in the season, so we lost a little bit of summer continuity there. But the next meeting, we had more.
Who drove that meeting, though? Who brought those groups together? It was held at Point Park, but who was responsible within our local chapter? Who brought those? You did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, obviously, I worked with Bill Molson. I worked with Kara at Point Park. We had guys from Robert Morris who were coming to meetings anyway, so they got roped in. And Jesse Irwin was the first host of Pitt Tonight and was really pushing that approach of a campus-wide. If you haven't watched Pitt Tonight, it's amazing what the kids can do. It's essentially a full-blown version of the Tonight Show they produce once a month. So it's they all came together because they want to talk about the cool stuff they were doing.
But we were addressing faculty. We were addressing people at the school, not necessarily directly to students. So, and we let them bring the students in, right?
Well, in this particular case, we wrangled the students. They were the ones who came and did the presentations.
Well, yes, I remember the presentations, but
Yeah, the faculty sort of said, "Hi, here's my guys," and then they went and did it and talked about what they were doing. It wasn't a faculty person talking with, except in one case, with 6 students sitting at the podium, nodding their head. The students were getting up and talking about,
And then afterwards, they talked to each other, which
Yeah.
was great. They were trying to get, they were getting ideas from each other. It was wonderful. It's the only time we ever ran out of food at one of these meetings too.
And they wound up doing field trips, one university to go see another university and what they were doing.
Yeah.
Now this
That needs
is
to
an
happen
interesting.
again. That needs to happen again. It's been too long.
SMPTE is a networking engine for students. How about that? A networking event for students, of students, by students, maybe 1 month dedicated to students, or more than one, maybe.
Well, it's also an opportunity for members of the SMPTE section who are involved in hiring to get to meet students and go, "Hey, this guy is pretty sharp."
Good point. a career fair
I need some of
combination,
that.
maybe.
Well, just to mingle and listen to somebody talk, and the guy that RMU hired to run the UPMC Event Center, I know that Dan was desperately trying to hire based on what he saw at the presentation. He said, "This is good. This guy's going to be great."
Okay, so that's a plus. We have
Yeah,
10
was
left.
that, when was that? When was the last time you did that?
Oh, it's probably been 3 years ago.
So probably right before I started at RMU then. So
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
yeah, because I know that was the last time that my staff remembers anyone from our student group. Actually, so like RMU does RMU Tonight every 2 weeks, and I think that's the last time we can remember our students watching Pitt Tonight, which they ought to be
Yeah.
watching,
Yeah.
because it's literally their competition, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, it's
and,
interesting just to see what else somebody's doing and how it works. And the thing that I admire most about Pitt Tonight is their involvement of other disciplines within the university. It's not just a media production group. In fact, it isn't part of the university's media production. But there's law school students who help do rights clearances, and other people who help organize, and people from engineering that deal with that. And it's been interesting to see how they built that cohesive group of students together and have a waiting list of people to join and help.
And Ed is smart because everything runs through legal these days. That's broadcasting is far more than just the technology, it seems.
Bill, you mentioned earlier that you've got 10 slides to go at that rate, or at this
Yeah.
rate.
Okay.
About
So
11 o'clock when we're done.
So I'm going to say this is the most robust topic, though. So I think this, put a big pin in this one. But now we're going to kind of go back to an education side, SMPTE standards, at least, not education really, but should SMPTE standards be a topic, right, of a discussion? Should we have a meeting dedicated to exploring one or more standards that SMPTE puts their seal on? And tutorials, related to those standards, would that be interesting?
Yes.
It is about learning, right? So.
And I suspect many people don't even know that SMPTE makes standards and what standards are and how they're used.
They
and
are
how
a
they're
standards
generated.
body. Yeah, SMPTE ST2110, for example. It's got
I
those
think if
SMPTE
we
letters.
do standards, we need to do it only occasionally, and it should be high level.
High level meaning, okay, yeah. So
high level meaning
broad-
Enough that you go
overview.
enough that
Yeah.
you go get the details and understand them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go too deep into the weeds. Spike may appreciate that, but I think if you get too deep into it, people will just start dropping off.
Yep. Yeah. I hate to say we did this one on color space a few years ago, and that was getting very detailed. That was at Heinz Field, I think, wasn't it?
We did do one at Heinz Field.
Yeah, was that
Yeah.
Sony? Was that
You-
somebody?
you go,
That was
We
Hugo.
brought Hugo,
Yeah, Hugo.
Yeah.
Hugo. Well, that
And it was-
explains it.
Was well attended, and it was.
Yes.
I think
Hugo
that was about
can-
HDR.
He can
Yeah.
go deep.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of those things where you can help make the topic more relevant by having examples. What the hell is HDR? Well, show people.
Cool.
It
Okay, so
doesn't work with HDR.
I see we have some quiescent noise going on in the background, meaning no one's saying anything. So let's hop to the next three. Whew.
Thank you.
How many meetings should we hold a year? Once a week? No? Okay. I mean, may I suggest that we kind of have the right pattern? We're kind of off on summer, and so there's maybe 7 or 10 meetings a year. And if we run out of a topic, do we call it a month short? If we get an extra topic, do we have one go into the summer? I don't know. Are we flexible, or do we want to be hard set?
Well, given the difficulty of getting good presentations and the ability for anyone to go to any of the section presentations across the country, we did discuss reducing the number of monthly presentations. I'm not sure where we are on that, but in an effort to maintain continuity, I would like to see us continue monthly something or others. And even though it's difficult to get those programs.
So let me ask you this. As an analogy, when a musician comes out with a really good album or song or something like that, they usually wait and they want to do something really good and they'll wait for a while and it might come out another 3 months later on and be a really good one. Do we want to think that way? You know what I'm saying? So in other words, the presentations monthly need to be, I want to come back for more. Are we going to be able to do that?
You meaning
That's
if
always
we
been the challenge.
diluting our brand by not having really good ones? You mean? And that
Yeah, it was tough. It's just hard getting it together to have a good presentation.
It is, yes.
yes.
But that was the days
Yeah.
of, trying to get a venue together too. But
So in theory, it should be even easier now because we don't even have to worry about a venue.
Yeah.
But it's not.
And we don't have to worry about the presenter traveling a great distance and all of that stuff.
But you've got to figure out what your members want to learn
Yeah.
about.
But that's what we're doing right here, George. And Cyrus Anderson.
No.
new
We're
visitor.
not.
So
We're
new
not,
visitor here.
Bill. We're not, because the people we want to become members of SMPTE aren't in this meeting.
They
That's our first problem is who do we need to target as an audience and then find out what that audience wants.
Well, I think this
Agreed.
is progress because Tim, especially being able to take some of these more thoughts back into the RMU space, I think this is progress. It's incremental.
Oh yeah, but you've got to, we have a business here. We have a restaurant and we don't know what to serve for food because we don't know what our customers want, but we haven't identified what the customer base is. And that's what we need to do. Who are we trying to reach? What do those people want us to produce that will compel them to come to our restaurant and sample our content? And then it's up to us to make a great meal.
That's a good analogy, George. Yeah.
It is.
better than mine, George. I like that.
Yeah. Now I'm hungry.
So, if we have interest in students, what are they interested in? We have this age gap of people who have technical skills and are working really hard. Buzz, folks like that who are out there doing their thing. What would they like to learn? What would SMPTE do for them? I can surmise, but I'm not working in that area, so I don't want to put words in any of their mouth. But there's clearly lots of new technology that are out there that one would think, if you're a cameraman or a sound recordist or whatever, you'd be interested in learning about. How does it help your career?
Well,
Hey, guys.
unfortunately, the people that, other than Tim, that we need to ask aren't here,
Yeah.
I think
got a lot
there's-
of work ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Nope, and Tim's gone.
No,
Oh, he was just talking.
I was going to say,
Well,
but I think by the time you've got a student who's decided that they're interested enough that they want to know about a piece of sound technology, for instance, like I'm thinking about a couple of students who've run through who graduated in the last couple of years. If you've got them so far that they would come to an event to learn about a piece of audio gear, for instance, they've already decided. They've spent, like a few people have already said, hours online doing research and stuff.
Yep.
They've already made some decisions. So we need to get to those students earlier to help them, because like once the students are driven enough to start actually asking them like useful questions about technology, then those students have already started making up their mind about stuff they're looking for. And I guess for whatever reason, right now what they're looking for hasn't been organizations like SMPTE. But I'm thinking about events that I went to where there were students at. I thought that the events at NEP were grabbing students who were super, super bored with the prospect of sitting in front of a computer doing network security and seeing I could hang out on a truck and do more a kind of network engineering kind of stuff that Dan Turk was talking about that was really appealing to them.
Yep.
So I think that the tangible side of stuff, the hands-on side of stuff, still has a really strong appeal to some of our students. And that's happening before they know to ask savvy questions about a particular piece of gear or a standard.
Yeah, well, two of our best master classes were one in lighting Because you can read all about lighting instruments all you want, but at some point
You got to
gotta
touch
have,
them. Yeah.
you gotta touch them, you gotta see
Right.
tricks, you gotta learn about bouncing things off foam core.
Mhm.
And people went away and learned a lot. We also had a really good class about audio. And one of the topics that was most interesting and most compelling and wound up taking a large portion of the meeting was microphone placement. And the presenter had a multi-track recorder. We put multiple microphones in all the typical usable places that you would do, and then played back and listened to which ones were the best quality sound. Well, you're not going to find that on Google or whatever. You need to sit
Yeah.
there and go, oh, you mean that place we all put our lavaliers? That's really the worst place on a body you can put a microphone to get reasonable response. There's a
John
lot to
Luff, you
think.
were patient. John Luff.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have a class that started a minute and a half ago, so I'm going to have to log off this Zoom and go to that one.
Keep on
Thanks,
zooming.
John.
Thank you,
See ya.
John.
Keep on zooming, John. See ya.
Okay, speaking of zooming, we're going to keep zooming. And George, I know I'm kind of cutting out. I do thoroughly
No.
agree. You've got to be in hands-on past the theoretical point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going to
And you
mute
learn
and
a
be
lot.
quiet for a while.
Hey,
Oh,
Bill.
no. You, John Humphrey.
Cy, I see you joined us. Are you still working with students?
Yeah, I teach at Point Park.
Okay, great.
And, I couldn't join earlier. There's a Bethel Park Council meeting. There was a Zoom too, so that's why I'm late.
Oh,
but
glad you could make it.
Hearing what I picked up on so far, I think some more real production type stuff would bring in a younger audience. I mean, all the kids that I teach, I'm in the cinema arts program down there. So these kids all want to make movies and stuff like that, but more stuff for the film industry would at least have a chance of getting some younger people to attend, and make it more production oriented, which is pretty much, George, I heard you saying that stuff. So
Production's fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cy, you are on our mail list, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Well, Ed, we need to make sure that Cy gets notices of everything, either, after the meeting or something. But Tim and Cy are the kind of people that we need to connect with the students. Okay, Bill, back to you.
John, you're right. You guys are a gateway to the students, you and folks like you at other universities here. It's the only way it's going to work is collaboration.
What would be good production topics? Just curious, size perspective.
One of the things I'd like to see something on is more on Dante, because Dante has hit the audio world by storm pretty much. I don't think that's oriented so much towards film, but it's really kind of taking over a lot of things in the industry.
Yeah, it's even growing in broadcast, which
big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot more of it.
Yeah, I mean, boy, I don't know anything on, probably if you did a lot of stuff on editing, had a good editor share experiences and stuff like that, that might draw some people in too. Yeah.
Ed, you hear that?
I don't edit anymore. Hey, Cy, I just checked. You're on our member list, but I just want to make sure we have your Verizon email online. Is that still good email?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have,
Okay.
Unfortunately, a whole bunch of emails.
Okay.
I have my Point Park one too,
Okay. Well,
By the way,
I should
Cy,
look into that one, so.
you're new to the group, but I should interrupt. We are recording this for future playback on YouTube. So
That's okay.
just in case you want to read your email address, the world will know it. And Google will codify it, store it, and save it and index it.
I already have the too many. I'm bombarded all the time, So
Okay, cool.
Next.
Are we good to move on? Okay, great. I don't know. I mean, we're kind of blurring the topic of topics quite a lot throughout this evening, and I suppose one might say, how important is the presenter versus the topic? That depends on the presenter versus the topic, right?
No sales presentation.
Yeah, well, that's a given. Yeah,
I know,
I'm
but
with you.
It's
I'm with you
so
completely.
back to size perspective on editing and things like that. We would want I think we tried that once, a real editor come in or a graphics person that's in the industry, that how they create graphics. Not on a machine, but how they do it.
More creators, really a lot like Buzz next month, talking about the art and their,
Yeah.
right?
Anytime you get into software stuff like graphics, like editing,
Even an
Man,
audio,
how do
even
you
an
do
audio
that?
engineer. How about an audio engineer? An A1 or somebody that just talk
those
about
are
how they mix.
master classes practically. How much can you impart in the period of an hour and a half? I don't know. And can you do it effectively in a virtual Zoom meeting? I don't. Maybe Ed has a better
But that's a
idea
detail
than
that
I
we can
do.
figure out.
But those sound complicated to me.
Maybe you skin
Usually-
the top, maybe you skin the top of the subject matter and in that 35 minutes and lead it towards, we're going to have a master class, or we're going to have a sidebar presentation in depth for anybody who wants to, join in and learn and drill down into Dante, or pick the subject and go. Most of the stuff that we do is very detail oriented, and there's a lot of depth to all of it. You can't cover it all, but if you can glaze the top, get everybody interested, get some of the students interested, get some of the faculty interested, they can guide students and other faculty members toward a drill down presentation. I don't know how we do that, but I mean, it seems like that's the only way that you'd address some of the things that are going to come up.
Yeah, I mean, you could never be a university class in an hour and a half, right?
Oh,
But at least you can wet the whistle of the topic and make it interesting to talk about and exchange ideas.
and then you can have some
then-
interaction with those students and faculty members,
Yep.
whoever attends. That way, you know how you can tailor that a little bit
Yeah.
further. You can drill down to whatever that those specific individuals want.
Those kind of things remind me of getting a sip of water from a fire hose.
Well, like you said, though, 30,000 foot view, not 5,000. So, like Mike said. Thanks, Mike.
How do you judge the quality of the presenter, though? I mean, there's to just grab somebody that's never done a presentation before. That's a difficult one. I mean, first they got to know the topic. Second, they got to know how to develop a presentation. You don't just grab somebody and stick them in front of a camera and say, start talking. So
If we asked you to do something on network storage and shared storage, and you could sit there and without a lot of effort, I think you could probably talk for a good 35 minutes or so and just glaze the top of that enough to make them want more. The ones who do want to know more, to make them come back for more. And so you pick somebody like Tweeter for audio, or I mean, there's a variety of people that you could select for audio, for video shading and things of that sort.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. And if somebody's pitching something, they'll have a summary, and you can at least get some idea for their organization and by reading that. I mean, one other resource there. And as there's other speakers that we already know, then they're already validated. So, so I'm reading a slide that you all see. Should the topics be of immediate use in your current job or future reference or general knowledge? I'd say all of the above, right? Depends on what the topic is and where you're at in your, career.
Yeah, the answer is yes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Okay, good.
Yes, and yes.
Got that one off the list. Okay, number 14. The hits just keep on coming. How important is the location for in-person meetings? We've been talking about this a bit. Should the meetings be tied to a location, or or a facility, or a topic, or both? And I'd say again, yes, and yes. Not all
We're
topics
right now because of COVID. So.
Yep. And I think, John pointed out, John Love, before he left, that there could be still hybrid stuff where we even have we're at a venue and we have a tour and a tour of the venue, but maybe there's still somebody presenting remotely to that group at that venue because somehow they're related to it. That could be interesting. Hybrid presenter in a venue tour. But sometimes we may not have a place that we could go to. The topic may present itself well, be done just online. Everybody loves NEP. That's always a great tour. You know, we haven't been to Point Park for a while. That was again, like you said, guys, years ago, a great thing that George put together there.
Well, I'm sure we could get an invitation from Cy, but we've got the COVID situation.
Yes,
So,
at this point, yes.
Yeah, that's a big problem for sure. I mean,
Yep.
you know, they have a pretty strict mandate, so everybody is vaccinated down there. And all the students are too. And so far it's been pretty good. Although I have one student in the first class couldn't come because of COVID. So, you know, this whole thing has been rather complicated for a while. But
Yeah. We've even had nice WPXA, WESA, WYEP. They've hosted us before, you know, nice facilities there, but you guys can't do it now either, Tom, right? With 30% of people coming in, you know, essentials only, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Cyrus, I might have interrupted you there.
moving
No, I-
right along, Bill.
Okay, John.
moving right along. There you go.
Are we communicating with you, you to all of our group audience here, the way you want to be communicated to? So, right, our mechanisms, disposal, our email and Facebook, and we could crank up the Twitter feeds. Earlier, somebody, Tim, I think you were mentioning Instagram, you know, which we don't have an Instagram account. Is that something we need? You know,
I think it's a matter of connecting to folks who are actively using those. I think Cy could probably speak to this. I think it's the student production group. I think it's the Association of Pittsburgh Film and Media Students is pretty much 50% Point Park and RMU students, and they're posting on all of the platforms, but mostly on Facebook and Instagram. We just need to get them to post the SMPTE events onto their channels to promote. I'm pretty sure it's like one of our students and a couple of Point Park students who are running that.
yeah. And if we start, and we don't do this, I've always had a habit of posting the event after the event with a photo and a little summary of what we did. But we naturally have to really get into the habit of posting something coming up onto Facebook and, yes, Instagram. And then these students could take that and cross post it to other you know, sections. So yeah, this is good to know. Thank you.
Well, even if you took the invitations and every one of these people that are on this call right here had a Facebook account and reposted it to yours, you might be surprised how many people might be interested.
That's true.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's how I find out what's going on, like the STE rather, in Los Angeles, just because they posted it on my Facebook account.
Good point.
Yep. So I'm not going to say goodbye to emails, but
Oh, email's just clutter.
Yeah,
it-
emails are
ugh.
death
Oh,
trap.
garbage.
Garbage is right. I don't even see half of mine.
Oh, it's immense.
Who's got time to do it?
I know, right?
But, you know, Facebook, you'd probably look at least once a day or once every other day for some reason. If
Because
nothing
of the
else, to say,
entertainment.
happy birthday, you know?
For some reason.
Okay, cool. So should we change the number of messages we send so people don't tune out? Well, boy, you just prodded, you know, email clutter. Anybody?
Ed, do we get a lot of unsubscribes?
No, very few. I've had really over the years, we've had maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 unsubscribes that I can remember. And most of the time it's because people have left, you know, the profession or left the field and aren't interested anymore. So, so that's really not a problem.
Yeah, and the second part of that is you're missing the back channel people reading that message if they're even reading it. Again, it's the garbage, the clutter garbage in the email box.
Yeah, there's no way to tell. I mean,
There's no way to know they read it or not.
when
They
we
just
send
saw
a,
it.
when we send an email blast out, we send it to about 380 email addresses right now. So So I have no way, we get a few kickbacks every once in a while and I'll take those off or, trim the list a little bit. But I don't get very many of those, get a lot of, I'm on vacation messages, but we have no way of telling whether
Yeah.
people are actually reading them or not. So,
But I think back to Carl's point, the whole Facebook, all that, I think that's what we really need to focus on.
Yeah, being proactive. Almost better that we do the PR before
Share
the
it,
event,
share
even if
it.
we don't do it after.
Yep. Share it.
Yeah,
That's a good-
absolutely. Get it out before, and at least a week or two before, I would say.
Yeah, well, we're
Yeah.
promoting the February meeting now, so.
Which is rare that we
February
get this ahead of
16th, I
it.
think.
Yeah.
I think keeping an emphasis on everyone being welcome is also something to note. I know when I was younger, just seeing organizations like SBE or NAB or SMPTE in general, I thought of it a lot as a membership only type situation. So just making it known in these, when you're notifying people that it is something that anyone can join in these meetings, and it's just accessible for everyone.
And that's a good idea. Now, John or Ed, when he puts out these notifications, does put that in there right at the bottom. I think you say open
try to
to
use
every-
the word free as much as possible too.
Yeah, free. That's right. Also important. But Tom,
That's
that's
why I
good.
haven't even renewed my membership right now. So sorry to say.
Okay, Cy, get out of here.
Okay. I know I should leave. I'm sorry.
Ed, I think
Tom,
maybe
thanks for that.
more than
Thanks, Tom.
free would be good. Everyone welcome, don't have to be a member, something.
Bring a friend.
If we get people
Yeah.
to the meetings, we can work on the membership.
Yeah.
Again, it's selling the value.
So we've gone over the social media, guys. This is the light at the end of the tunnel. Should we set up push notifications to phones? You mean like send some of these? We didn't write these questions, to be honest. But push notifications, I'm assuming, means texts. That might be a pain for people to.
I hate that, man. I just
Yeah.
get these stupid text
I
messages.
let me
drive
ask-
me-
I hate that.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a no.
But one thing
That would be no,
nice,
Bill.
one possibility is when you sign up for a meeting and maybe have the option of having a text to remind you of the meeting.
That's a good idea. I was going to say the same thing, Greg. Thanks.
No, that
Opt in, opt out. Would you like to have a text notification?
Yep.
And only do it once. I mean, don't
Yeah.
make it for every
No.
single thing.
yeah, Zoom can be set to send out reminders at a certain increment before an event. Usually just to the email of the person who registered.
But it's an email. We're talking about a text message.
I know. No, I know. We're talking text, but I don't know that. At least, so we would need to have an infrastructure to grab that, have a gateway, an SMS gateway, and manage that. That's a bigger lift than just using the Zoom appointment tool that we have at the moment. Yeah, we don't collect people's mobiles, and I don't know that we want to.
Yeah.
No, don't. That's not the purpose, and that wouldn't happen. So
Okay, next
But it's still
question.
thought provoking. It is still thought provoking. Maybe there's a little chatter here, so maybe that's something to think about. And everybody got time for another survey? So we don't have one now, but at the end of these meetings, the Zoom platform allows to usually have a nice little survey or a poll, even during the Zoom session.
this is very short. 1 or 2, 3.
Exactly, Greg.
Any more than that,
exactly. I'd say 5
done.
questions max. I hate those surveys that just
In
go
one page
on and
only.
on.
Oh, and then you never know when the end is in sight.
Yeah.
Like
I
these
agree.
questions.
Short.
Yeah, put them all on one page and that's it.
Yeah. And a little text. Promises, no more pages. Only one. Okay, cool. And of course, now we have to figure out what would these questionnaires and polls be. But at the worst, people don't hit them. They just close out the window and on with the day. So,
Well, if they don't answer it, then you just send them to Publishers Clearinghouse.
right.
Endless
Uh-oh.
emails.
Hey, look, the slide looks different.
Hey, we made it.
This is where we get the pump up this awesome meeting that
Oh, yeah.
John met this very tall gentleman at a party at Viewpoint, right?
Yeah.
And I mean,
An in-person party,
What a great-
Christmas party at Viewpoint. I don't think anybody got sick or died, so that was a good thing.
that's progress. That's going to be an
Viewpoint
incredible
could be a
time.
venue then.
Oh,
Hey,
right.
Viewpoint had host, in fact, Buzz is going to do his presentation at Viewpoint in the studio there.
Right. He said that. Yeah.
And Viewpoint has hosted for it with us before.
We need to get those guys into SMPTE, by the way.
Before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask the academic folks real quick on a topic, because nobody talked about it here. The closest we got to it was Dante. I'm just curious if there's anybody interested in topics on the IP front in terms of software development, software defined networks, data centers, that kind of stuff and topics.
Hi, Carl. You and a colleague of yours did a really nice one last summer here, I think, right? On
Yeah.
the Hudson
ABC
Yards.
project. Oh, it's on
That was-
ABC's Galaxy project.
That was really cool. Maybe there's more there. In
I
other
just
words,
wanted to see if Cy and Tim, if you agree with having some topic like that. That's all.
I think it's worth trying. I think it's a different group. It's not, I mean, it's taking off my center director hat and putting on my faculty hat. Yeah, we have more computer information system students than we have production students. The production students are more active, but I think that some of that stuff, like you mentioned, the Hudson Yard, was that the Hudson Yards setup?
No, it's the new Disney building that's under construction in New York.
I think that, yeah, I think that if we were to promote something like that, you'd get a few. And maybe that would be something to try online.
Well, the IT stuff is stuff that you have to know about nowadays. And so I think any kind of education on that, as long as you get somebody who can present it well, would be good. I wanted to say, because you have the slide you have up right now, I think a bunch of the Point Park students might be very interested in this.
Yeah, they should be.
Sounds real good.
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that's real world stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually thought the last presentation with Glenn Przeworski was really good.
That was great.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought he did a great job.
It has been slightly unintentional, but we have skewed toward production in the last couple of meetings.
This is where we're supposed to give PR about SMPTE membership, but everyone here is a SMPTE member, except maybe Tom. So, and Cyrus is renewing, so you kind of know these benefits that it brings already. But John, I mean, do you want to touch on any of these?
I always make a point that when I'm making a presentation, I'm not going to read the slides.
Sorry, that's not
now
working
you're
tonight.
asking me to read the slides. So no, I'm not going to read the slides. You read the slides.
There you go. And they are what they are. I mean, I swear half of these meetings, I enjoy them because it's connecting and shaking hands and seeing friends again. And that's our biggest problem right now, is that's just not happening. Then the topic is also of interest, but I've gone to meetings where we didn't have an interesting topic just to see you guys again. So I think, but post-COVID, it's going to come back. If people are social, we just got to figure out how to make it interesting to the people that once they realize they're in, they're like, wow, we didn't know about it was this. Like even to Tom's point about we didn't know it was open to everyone. Mm-hmm. Yeah, free food, actual free food.
Yeah.
No strings attached.
Hey, Bill, I think it's interesting.
Sorry, go ahead, Carl.
Just real quick, I think it's interesting that bullet point number 5 here, I never heard of SMPTE Connect YouTube until just now.
Oh.
No information on it at all.
And you're a fellow, for crying
Goodness
out
gracious.
loud.
Oh, that's probably why.
And Bill, you raised an interesting point. When you had an interesting venue to go to, an interesting program, social, and free dinner, you had 4 things, and if you had 2 of those that somebody was interested in, they'd show up at the meeting. I don't really care about this topic, but I'd like to see my buddies. I really want to go see the newest NEP truck or the 4K display thing at Heinz Field. So, we would clearly losing 3 of the 4 has been hard for all the sections. We're not the only ones struggling.
So
Hey,
let
when
me,
we're done, I need to talk about section elections before it gets too
Gosh,
late.
yes, okay, we
Oh,
should,
okay.
Bill, can we end this portion so that
Yep.
George can, okay.
Yep, and I'll just say, because we are recording, someone might notice that these are our current elements. I am going to get us going back on Twitter and on Instagram. So, and I'm going to start, getting out that message on those platforms too. Oh my gosh, I have to earmark time to do all those. I wish there was one portal you
and
could
Bill,
use that gets it out there.
Let me thank you for taking that on. Appreciate it.
All right.
You know me, I'm a social butterfly, so my pleasure. Thank you for thanking me. I appreciate it. Feedback from everyone, greatly appreciated. So, okay, yeah, shall we kind of wrap this recording up? And
George, do you want to continue recording during this part?
There's nothing we're going to say that's people shouldn't hear. So
Okay, why not, Bill? Leave
Okay,
it running.
you got it.
And we'll just leave it as an open discussion. And George, the floor is yours.
I've been drafted by our esteemed chairman, Mr. Humphrey, to lead the nominating committee for section elections next year. Those happen later in the spring, and new section management leadership team takes effect in July. We're the Johnny come lately, sorry, John, Pittsburgh section. We're always behind. So we really need to get some nominations together. We have openings for, as John mentioned, chairman, secretary treasurer, and 3 managers. You don't need to be a SMPTE member to throw your hat in the ring, but you need to be a SMPTE member at the time nominations go out or elections go out in order to be considered. So I sent a note, hopefully many of you got last week, to people saying, are you interested? I got an affirmative from Otto Sellen, who's retiring and will have some free time. He's interested in helping in any way possible. I don't know as yet whether our current chairman and secretary treasurer are interested in doing that for another go round. They can do a maximum of 2 terms, and then 3 section managers.
And then I'm up because this will be my second,
Yeah.
if not third.
Yeah, you could be, if you're a secretary treasurer, you could become a manager. You just can't do the chairman role or the after 2 terms. So I need some names. I say have not found a whole lot. I had a couple leads from Kara for Point Park faculty who are not members but might be interested. I need to reach out to them. So if there's anybody who's interested and wants to know more, I'm happy to talk now about what the duties entail. Most of you know the managers are participating in a usually summer next year planning meeting that has been face-to-face or virtual that lasts a couple hours, and then a monthly call. So it's not a huge time commitment. We'd like people who are interested in addressing a lot of the issues we've talked about today: programming, outreach to students, outreach to professionals in the industry who are not currently SMPTE members that could possibly benefit. So that's my pitch in its simplest words.
That's a good pitch, though.
So if you think about it, drop me a note.
Okay.
No, it's funny. I'm going to slightly pontificate on how SBE, Society of Broadcast Engineers, in 2014 became SMPTE here in Pittsburgh. Just kind of the people, the leadership, moved over, and George and John and others starting it. But SBE used to be there for broadcast, radio and television. And then there's the thinning numbers of engineering. That was folks that were actively employed. Engineering folks was thinning down. So now that we're into the film and video space, radio, Tom, to be honest, is at the lowest end of the SMPTE conversation. It's not technically on the map. Audio is, of course, and you're an IP audio facility now. But Yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I mean, I'd love to know what you, does this look even interesting to you from a radio standpoint, is at least to meet more technically savvy and creative technical media folks once a month eventually again.
Well,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
one of the things we're missing too
Cool.
here is that virtually everybody who used to do print or audio only now has a video component of their content stream.
Yeah, I think definitely. I was going to say mostly my interest in coming here so far has been professional networking and just trying to meet some other people in the industry. I know most of my background has been audio based in radio, but I haven't had too much interaction with just other engineers in general. I've met a handful of them, but I thought this would be a place to meet some different people and get some different perspectives on stuff. So that's definitely been my interest in coming here so far, if that gives you guys any insight.
No,
does.
that was one of the reasons Mr. Luff and I and Mr. Humphrey thought we needed to have a SMPTE section that was a little more encompassing, because there was lots of organizations doing things, but nobody really knew the visual effects companies. Nobody really sort of knew what NEP did and what somebody else might be doing. And the networking is an important aspect.
It's the funnest part.
Mr. Humphrey, back to you, sir.
Thank you, George. And, thanks for taking on the nominating committee lead. And I hope that we're able to find people. I had hoped that we'd have more people on this meeting and we could choose from those people, but we'll have to run them down separately, Cy, I'm going to get your email from Ed and connect up with you. I want to pick up, about Point Park and stuff like that. And I think that, to say students are the future, that's kind of an understatement.
Yeah,
but it also applies here.
It's key.
and I really think you need to get some students involved, because it seemed like a few years ago, remember we had a meeting. Was that at Point Park? Might have been.
Yeah, it
There
was.
was quite a few people there, and a bunch of students showed up. I'll talk to Andrew Hallis, who's now running Cinema Arts now, and he's an audio guy. That's how I got involved down there. I mean, actually, the tour that we did down there, that George, I guess you arranged it with Kara, and then Kara, you got too busy with the pandemic with her daughter, I think, so she left, and we went with no chair for a while, and then they drafted Andrew. So I'll talk to him about it. Somebody I thought of just thinking about that. I know a few of you guys know basically Mr. Nick Cap. Does anybody hear from Nick Cap anymore?
He's out on the road, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think he's probably doing the Olympics. He usually does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he let his membership lapse for whatever reason.
Did he? Yeah, because I haven't heard from him in a long time. I still have an email for him, but I haven't tried to reach out.
Yeah, I have an email, but it's probably an old one,
Okay.
Yeah, last time I saw him was at one of the WQED meetings. He showed up.
Yeah. He knows a lot of people though, too. So,
Oh, yeah.
I'll try and I think I'm going to email him, because I was thinking about him the other day, wondering if he's, already gone, or I think they're doing remote, the whole Olympics production. I think I saw that it's being done from Connecticut remote.
Heavily.
It's
Heavily,
amazing
yeah.
what they're doing, how they're doing
Yeah.
it this year.
Yeah. Which is pretty bizarre. So,
It's funny because most of the people you expect going overseas to the venue are actually going to Stamford, Connecticut.
yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so that's what I was wondering, what those guys were doing. So, and Lisa Sorrencioni, who I used to work with at 53, she does graphics every year for them and everything. So I guess they're probably going there. I don't know.
Well, and
Home.
a lot of Olympic
Yeah.
production is still being done in China, but the
Yeah.
announcers are calling the event from Stamford,
Right.
watching the feed from China where it's put back into the show and then sent back to Stanford as a finished.
Yeah.
headset.
I think that when the Olympics are over, that could be a topic for a very
Oh,
interesting
absolutely.
presentation.
You know, I
Yeah.
think it's a pretty, you know, breaking the precedent here for sure, you know.
Yeah.
Be a whole year of topics.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few there.
Sure is.
Okay.
Well, Bill, thank you for moderating this. We've run over an hour and a half, but it was worth it and it was very worthwhile. And hopefully we'll be able to pick up some pieces that some nuggets that we panned for in this meeting.
Yep.
And come up with some things to advance the plan. So unless anybody has an objection, I'm going to call this meeting over and end it. Everybody okay with that?
Appreciate it.
Sounds good.
Appreciate it, y'all.
Yeah, thanks.
Great.
Yep.
It's great seeing
Everybody-
Thank you
everybody,
all
and
for
thank you,
being here
everybody.
and contributing.
Thanks to everyone.
Nice
Okay.
to see everybody.
Good night, everyone.
You too, guys.
Good night.
Good night.